The past you've spent decades outrunning is actually the only terrain honest enough to reveal the truth you've been avoiding. And true justice requires not chasing new leads, but walking backward through the wreckage until you find the moment everything went wrong. In Backtrack, Marc Cameron delivers a procedural thriller that transforms the cold case trope into a searing exploration of institutional memory and masculine accountability, proving that in landscapes defined by buried sins, resolution isn't found in forward momentum. It's forged in the radical act of returning to the source when every instinct demands you keep moving. This isn't merely another deputy marshal procedural with Alaskan grit. It's a psychologically precise narrative where every retraced step feels like both penance and revelation. Consent to investigate is negotiated through acknowledgement of complicity rather than assumed authority, and healing means honoring the cost of silence when the system demands you forget. From the first frostbitten narration, listeners are immersed in a world where geography is testimony and presence is the only reliable compass. Perfect for fans of emotionally grounded crime fiction and stories where male vulnerability defies stoic expectations, this audiobook serves up atmospheric intensity, relentless emotional honesty, and a protagonist whose journey from hardened marshal to integrated witness resonates with anyone who's ever mistaken endurance for absolution. When U.S. Deputy Marshal Arliss is assigned to revisit a decade-old disappearance in remote Alaska, he expects routine closure, not to discover the case file mirrors the exact pattern of institutional neglect that cost him his brother, and the accidental loss reported by locals carries the same signature of erasure used against those who question too loudly. But as Cutter navigates frozen trails and fractured community trust, he realizes this assignment isn't about resolution, it's about reckoning. Cameron masterfully avoids reducing Cutter to brooding archetype or Alaska to postcard backdrop. Instead, he crafts a narrative where law enforcement becomes forensic anthropology of power, where consent is renegotiated through humility rather than jurisdiction, and where liberation requires seeing the system's design before it consumes you. The audiobook narration amplifies this emotional vertigo, capturing Cutter's disciplined focus fracturing into genuine clarity, while secondary voices shift subtly between performative cooperation and hidden agenda, making every interview feel like both penance and tutorial. You don't just hear the investigation unfold, you feel the seismic shift of a man learning that some truths can only be found when you stop running from your own history. What elevates Backtrack beyond typical procedural fare is its nuanced portrayal of cold cases as inherited trauma rather than bureaucratic obligation. Cutter isn't merely solving a crime, he's confronting how martial culture taught him to equate worth with results, challenging the notion that safety requires emotional detachment. His relationships evolve through acts of radical reciprocity, sharing silences during snowbound stakeouts that bypass performance, establishing protocols that protect both operational integrity and psychological safety, and defending witnesses' right to grieve against superiors who mistake skepticism for insubordination. Supporting characters add vital texture: fellow marshals whose loyalty encodes suppressed shame, indigenous elders whose wisdom carries intergenerational weight, even the Alaskan-wilderness itself, rendered as living archive whose permafrost absorbs centuries of unspoken bargains. Every interaction reinforces the novel's core truth: in systems built on erasure, attention is insurgency, and presence is the only sustainable resource. Even the procedural mechanics serve thematic depth, with evidence logs mirroring emotional attunement and terrain navigation becoming metaphor for earned trust. For audiobook listeners, this production is an immersive sensory descent into elemental reckoning. The narrator embodies Cutter's evolution with remarkable range, from clipped professionalism to trembling openness during breakthroughs, while supporting characters are distinguished through vocal textures that honor regional authenticity without caricature. Sound design enhances atmosphere without overwhelming immersion. Distant wind gusts knocking temporal rhythm, rain against cabin windows during vulnerable confessions, the hushed crunch of boots on packed snow syncing with breath during moments of clarity, all anchor mythic stakes in tangible reality. Pacing mirrors the cadence of backtracking, deliberate during reflection and foundational bonding, then surging with urgency as external threats collide with internal awakenings. Whether you're communing through stable landscapes or sitting in heated solitude, the audiobook creates a portable sanctuary where slowness feels sacred and embodiment feels lifeline. Its storytelling is somatic validation, transforming passive listening into active participation in a journey where justice isn't found in arrests, but in restoration. Ultimately, Backtrack redefines the procedural thriller by centering male emotional labor within institutional frameworks.
It satisfies genre cravings for fair play clues and cathartic resolution, while delivering substantive commentary on law enforcement accountability, masculine vulnerability, and the radical act of trusting embodied knowledge when systems demand conformity. Prior series knowledge enriches context, but this volume stands confidently as a complete emblegimal agency for returning readers. If you've ever wondered whether strength can coexist with softness, or if true mastery requires embracing what others fear, this audiobook will affirm that sometimes the most powerful act is simply turning around. Press play, lace up your boots, and prepare to believe that even in landscapes shaped by silence, hearts still find ways to speak. Your next favorite procedure isn't waiting in perfect solves. It's waiting in the brave, trembling choice to face what you left behind.